Hey everyone, tonight we're going to laugh, but very, very quietly, okay? Because you were lucky enough to be born in a time when laughing is safe. You can drop a LOL after a video of a pigeon falling off a ledge, and no inquisitors will knock on your door. You can crack jokes in the family group chat without ending up tied to a stake. And yet, funny how you barely laugh for real anymore, right? Tonight, we're going back to the year 1200, the Middle Ages. But not the version with sparkling castles, pale princesses, and shiny slow motion knights. Tonight, you'll live as a regular human, a thinking, curious being with a serious problem, a sense of humor. Yes, you're cursed with finding the world funny. And back then, that was dangerous. Laugh at the wrong thing, at the wrong time, in front of the wrong person, and boom, smoke. Before we begin, you know the drill. Like the video if you enjoy this kind of immersion. Subscribe to the channel for more hard lives to fall asleep to. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, turn off the lights. If you can, put a cloth over your head to feel the weight of a medieval hood. Let a fan hum in the background like inquisitorial whispers, and take a deep breath. Here we go. You're born in the coldest winter the village's 7 oldest folks can remember. The birth happens in silence because your mother knows making noise draws attention. And attention, in times like these, is almost always bad news. You're the second child of a farmer, as thin as a scythe, and a woman who's given birth so many times she's lost count. You're born purple, but alive. They cry quietly. No one celebrates. You grow up among goat droppings, moldy flour, and whispers about sins you don't understand. The village has 20 mud houses and a wooden bell that never rings without reason. The only school is the priest's mouth, and it teaches fear. From an early age, you have the bizarre urge to laugh. Laugh when the priest trips at mass. Laugh when the goat chokes on a turnip. Laugh when old Brigida sneezes and almost loses her straw wig. But no one else laughs. People stare, whisper. Your mother pinches your arm hard whenever a giggle escapes. You'll end up in the fire, girl, she hisses through clenched teeth. You learn to hold in laughter the way you learn to walk, with falls and pain. At 6 years old, you witness your first execution. A boy, not much older than you, is tied to a post in the square. They say he mocked the Bible, laughed at the apocalypse. You don't really understand what he said. But the last thing he does before the flames rise is smile. A wide, calm, almost relieved smile. You swallow hard. Something breaks inside you. From that day on, you laugh only on the inside. In your head, every funny thought becomes an imaginary bonfire, a lit match, a crime with no proof. You start collecting silent jokes, ones only you understand, your own book of internal heresies. Growing up like this is like learning to breathe underwater. You get good at pretending. Wear the face of a sad girl, the look of a submissive servant, the mouth always neutral. But inside, you mock the world. One day, your father steps on a rake and takes the woods full on to the face. You feel laughter explode in your chest like thunder, but not a sound escapes. At 10, you start writing. With charcoal stolen from the hearth, you scribble on the latrine boards, short, mocking phrases. The devil is just God hungover. If Adam had eaten the snake, none of this would have happened. You don't know it, but you're founding the world's first invisible stand up act. Your mother finds one of these lines. She spits on it and cries as she wipes it away. Then she rubs your face in the mud and says, "If anyone ever sees this, you won't live to see the next harvest." You believe her, and still you keep writing, now in hiding, in cracks between boards, beneath stones, on the back of a stolen parish scroll. You develop a strange talent, laughing with your eyes, a glimmer almost no one notices, but one day someone will. And maybe that will be the beginning of the end. Your mother's warnings echo in your bones, but your thoughts keep flowering like weeds through stone. By 12, you've mastered silence. You laugh with your lungs shut. You joke without words. You listen more than you speak. And when you do speak, it's never more than necessary. This makes you invisible, and invisibility is power. Not the grand, shiny power of kings, but the slippery survival kind. You become mist, smoke, a child-shaped gap in the wall. But some people are cursed with seeing smoke. Brother Aldrich arrives in your village on a donkey that limps and farts. He's thin, with skin like candle wax and eyes that don't blink enough. He's sent by the bishop to teach the word, cleanse the errors, and sniff out the rot. You know what he really means. He means hunt. He preaches every evening in the square. Fire and sulfur, heaven as reward, hell as the rule. He talks of laughter as a distraction from the sacred. He says the devil hides behind jokes, that fools are the devil's ink. And while he shouts, you watch the villagers nod, some for real, some just trying to stay safe. Your mother nods so hard, it looks like she might snap her neck. You nod too, with your body. But your mind is a heretic. Brother Aldrich has the kind of nose that smells thoughts. He starts with the goat herder who used to hum silly songs, then the boy who whistled while walking, then the girl who smiled too much at the baker. None of them are seen again. You begin to erase yourself. You wipe the smile from your soul. You practice stillness until you're more statue than girl. But one day, the rain ruins everything. It's been weeks of dry silence, and then, suddenly, a downpour. The village square becomes a pit of mud and slipping feet. And there he is, Brother Aldrich, trying to maintain dignity as his foot skids, and he lands flat on his back in front of everyone. The moment is perfect, unholy, glorious, and you laugh, not out loud, not with your mouth, but your shoulders twitch, your eyes flash, a breath too sharp escapes, and he sees you, a flash of recognition, a seed of suspicion. Oh, you walk home, drenched and trembling. Your mother notices. She asks nothing. She knows. That night, you can't sleep. You listen for boots, for knocks, for the end. It doesn't come, not that night. But the next day, you are called to the chapel. Brother Aldrich sits on a throne made of 2 crates. He invites you to kneel. You do. He speaks slowly about sin, about temptation, about humor as corruption. He asks if you find things funny, if you think God has a sense of humor. You say the safest thing, I don't know. He leans forward. What do you laugh at? You answer with eyes on the floor. Myself, sometimes. He nods. That's good. To laugh at oneself is the beginning of repentance. He lets you go, but something has begun, a file, a mark. From that day on, you feel it, the weight of his gaze. He watches your silences, measures your pauses, times your blinks. You become less than mist, you become tension. And then, one morning, the chapel bell rings before sunrise, loud, urgent. You wake to firelight, voices, steps. You peek through the slats and see your friend, the miller's daughter, being dragged by the wrists. They say she made jokes, wrote a poem. You know it wasn't her. You know that poem. You wrote it, and she's gonna burn for it. You don't remember standing up. Your legs move before your mind catches up. You are outside before you can stop yourself. The crowd gathers, wet faces in the half-light, silent and shivering. The miller's daughter, Morel, stands tied to a stake soaked with oil. She is 14, her hair matted, her mouth red from biting her own tongue. She doesn't cry. You do, not visibly, not openly, but the tears run down your insides like molten wax. They read the charges, sacrilege, mockery, words unbecoming of a woman. Brother Aldrich holds the parchment like a sword. She laughed, he says. She wrote that laughter was sacred, that the devil was humorless, that sin was just a badly told story. You stare at the ground, your ears burn, you can't breathe, because every word was yours. She never even saw the poem. You wrote it, hid it under a rock near the well, and forgot it. Someone found it. Someone gave it to him, and he chose her. Morel meets your eyes. She knows, and she smiles. It is the kind of smile that fractures the earth, software kind, defiant. You are the only one who understands it. The flames begin. You don't watch. You can't. You run. You run until your feet bleed, until the trees blur. You run to the edge of the woods where no one dares go. There you collapse. You scream without sound. You punch the earth. You claw your own face. And then you vow. You vow not to forget her, not to forgive them, not to let the silence win. In the following days, you speak to no one. You eat little. You sleep in bursts. Your mother watches you with fear. One night, she sits beside you. She whispers, "I know it was you." You stay silent. She says, "You can't stop being who you are, but you can stop being found." She gives you a bundle, bread, a knife, a wool cloak. She kisses your forehead. Her lips tremble. You have to leave, and you do. You slip out under the dark, through the fog, past the chapel where his shadow sleeps. You walk toward the mountains, toward the outlaw lands, toward rumors of places where words aren't weapons. Your laughter now is colder, sharper, a blade beneath your ribs. You walk with fire behind you, and something else inside you, a fire that will never go out. You walk until your feet split open. Then you crawl. Then you sleep under roots, drink from puddles, eat moss when there's nothing else. The mountains are teeth, and the wind is laughterless. But at least you are free. You follow rumors past like seeds in the dark of a place beyond the hills where silence isn't holy and laughter isn't treason. And then you find it. Or rather, it finds you. One night, as you shiver beneath a hollow tree, shapes surround you, faces painted, eyes wary, clothes made of mismatched scraps. They don't speak, not at first. They study you like you're a wounded animal. Then one woman steps forward. She smells like smoke and mint. She offers you a chunk of root and says, "Eat or die." You eat, they take you in. These are the exiled, the cracked, the too loud, the ones who asked the wrong questions, wrote the wrong words, or just didn't kneel fast enough. And here, among them, you begin again. They call their place the Hollow. It's not a village. It's a wound stitched with defiance. Huts and trees, fires and pits, laughter behind veils. They live hidden, always moving. But they live. They test you. Days without food, nights in silence. One evening, you're tied to a post and told, "Convince us not to burn you." You tell them a story about a girl who swallowed laughter until it burned her from within, about a poem lost under a rock, about a smile that split the sky. When you finish, no one claps, but no one burns you either. You've passed. You become one of them, not just a member, a speaker. They call you Whisper because you say what others won't, because your voice is quiet, but your words hit like hammers. You start teaching the children how to write in code, how to say jokes that mean one thing and whisper another, how to make laughter sharp enough to cut ropes. You start writing again, poems that bite, songs that sting, fables that disguise truth as nonsense. One by one, nearby villages begin to change. Secret messages appear on chapel doors. Stories circulate. Mockery spreads like frost. Brother Aldrich hears, and he rages. But he doesn't know it's you. Not yet. You are no longer a girl hiding in shadows. You are a shadow walking in plain sight. It begins with a drawing. A child in the hollow sketches Brother Aldrich as a pig in robes, snout sniffing a trail of burnt books. You laugh. Everyone laughs. But then you post it on a chapel door with glue made from horse fat and a prayer of defiance. It spreads, first as whispers, then as copies, then as fire. In the village of Lormont, 3 boys are caught with the image. They refuse to say where it came from. One is whipped, one loses a hand, one disappears. And still, the drawing multiplies. In taverns, people drink and snort behind closed curtains. In markets, whispers slither like eels. Have you seen the pig priest? Aldrich doubles down. He accuses entire families, bans gatherings, burns books, and blasphemers indiscriminately. But it's too late. What you've unleashed is older than fire, mockery as revolt. And behind every snicker, every quiet smile, there's your voice. They begin to call you something else now, not whisper, wit. Because where you pass, wit follows. In riddles, in poems pinned to gallows, in tales told by merchants and beggars alike, you move like fog. In the hollow, you become a legend wrapped in wool and scars. You plan more, broadsheets, symbols, rhymes so sharp they draw blood. Then one morning a rider arrives. He is breathless, bleeding. Aldrich knows. He has captured a child, a girl, 10 years old, said she laughed at the drawing. You don't ask who, you don't need to. You gather the council. Voices rise. Some say run. Some say hide deeper. Some say forget her. You say no. You say, if we do nothing, the joke ends. So you make a plan. You walk into the village in daylight, cloak on, hood down. At the center square, you begin speaking. You tell a story. Not funny, not yet. A story about fear, about silence, about fire. People gather, they listen. You twist it, slowly, turn the knife, add the rhythm, the absurdity, the injustice. You end with a line. And then the priest said, why would God give us laughter if not to survive him? Silence. Then a single laugh. Then another. Then chaos. Aldrich emerges roaring. Guards storm the square. But it's too late. The people surround you. And then they turn on him. They don't just surround him. They swallow him. It starts with stones thrown by a butcher, then a washerwoman, then a child. Aldrich tries to speak, to threaten, to command, but every word he utters sounds more ridiculous now. A sermon in a storm of laughter. Someone mimics his voice, another mocks his posture. The square becomes theater, tragedy becomes farce. He is dragged. The guards hesitate. Some drop their weapons. One joins the crowd. By sunset, Aldrich is gone, not dead, just disappeared. No body, no grave, just whispers that he fled into the forest, mad with rage and shame. You don't smile, not yet. You tend to the girl, the 10-year-old. She's bruised but alive. You give her honey and bandages. She tells you jokes between sobs. They are terrible jokes, but you laugh anyway because something enormous has shifted. The villagers no longer bow to the chapel first thing in the morning. They meet in the square, they talk, they argue, they even sing. You stay in the village for a while. You teach them how to write messages in flour, in ash, in the folds of clothing. You teach them the weight of rhythm, the armor of metaphor, the sharpness of satire. A new group forms, children and elders alike. They call themselves the scribes of spite. They produce scrolls, songs, symbols, not just to mock, to heal, to bind, to remember. And then word spreads. Other villages start to rebel. Priests find scrawled lines on their pulpits. Laughter breaks out in sermons. Drawings appear, pigs, vultures, wolves in mitres. You become a myth. But myths are dangerous. Myths attract hunters. One night, you hear a name you haven't heard in years. Aldrich. They say he walks again, not as a man, but a voice in the wind. He's raising a new order, one darker, stricter, not just anti-laughter, anti-memory. He calls you the devil's mouthpiece. You don't tremble, but you do prepare, because jokes started this, and jokes sharp enough might end it too. They call you that now. It spreads across towns like a shadow. The name Aldrich gave you, a curse, a title, the devil's mouthpiece. You wear it like a crown, not out of pride, but because names, like jokes, gain power when repeated. And this one is spreading fast. Some believe you're not human anymore, that you sleep under full moons and whisper heresies to wolves, that you turned Aldrich into smoke with a single pun. You encourage none of this, but you deny none of it either, because now fear fights fear, and for once yours is louder. The hollow becomes a headquarters. Messengers arrive daily. Symbols are exchanged. Songs are composed, passed on like sacred scripture. You sharpen the edge of your writing. You gather all the stories, real and exaggerated, and bind them into one narrative, a resistance by laughter, a rebellion of ridicule. Every phrase has a purpose, every rhyme a warning, every pun a battle cry. Aldrich's movement grows too. His followers wear dark hoods. They burn anything with a joke. They call themselves the purifiers. They erase, rewrite, silence. They don't know how to laugh, but they know how to fear what does. One night, they raid a village known to support your cause. They leave behind ash and silence. You travel there with a team. You walk among ruins. You find one thing left untouched, a child's drawing on a stone wall, a girl with her mouth open, and the words, "She spoke for us." You kneel before it. You cry. Then you stand. and you begin writing again. You gather your closest allies. You speak plainly. It's not just about jokes anymore. It never was. They nod. You plan. Not just poems and rhymes. Not just whispers. A performance. One final act. You will walk into the center of Aldrich's new sanctuary and tell the joke that ends him. The purifiers have a stronghold now, a repurposed monastery high on a hill that was once holy and now reeks of ash and iron. They call it the Silence. You call it your stage. You travel in disguise, a tattered shawl, soot on your cheeks, walking like someone broken. You pass through checkpoints, whisper fake prayers, mimic empty eyes. Inside, the silence is cold and quiet. Guards walk like ghosts. The air hums with fear. You time everything. There's a festival coming, a twisted one, the Feast of Cleansing, Aldrich's invention, a week of burnings, sermons, and vows of silence. He'll speak on the final day. You plan to interrupt him. You plant allies inside, disguised as workers, cooks, listeners, each with a line to say, a word to pass, a phrase to echo, a chain of laughter. On the day of the feast, the courtyard fills. Hooded followers gather like crows. Aldrich stands tall in black robes, voice like a blade. He speaks of rot, of laughter as a plague, of purity through fear. And then you step forward. No hood, no mask, just your voice. Brother Aldrich, you say loud and clear. Did you hear the one about the priest and the pig? Gasps, stares, hands grip weapons. Aldrich's eyes go wide. He stares as if seeing a ghost. Maybe he is. You don't stop. You launch into it. A fable disguised as a joke. A pig who built a chapel and demanded worship. A pig who feared laughter so deeply he ate his own tongue. Each line cuts. Each rhyme sinks in. And then the echoes begin. From the crowd, giggles, then full laughter, then shouts. The chain works. Your allies rise. One recites your poem. Another sings a satirical hymn. Children mimic the pig priest. Aldrich screams, commands, threatens. No one listens, because the laughter is louder now. And then the bell rings, not a warning, a celebration. The monastery gates open. The hollow arrives, not armed with swords, but with voices, with puppets, and with masks, with song, a performance. And the purifiers, they don't know how to fight theater. They don't expect the masks, animal faces carved from wood, painted bright, each with a story. A pig in priest's robes, a vulture with a bishop's ring, a wolf with holy books for teeth. They don't expect the songs, not chants, not hymns, parodies, ballads, rhymes that twist scripture into satire. Children sing them, elders dance. The courtyard becomes a theater of rebellion. Aldrich is frozen, not with fear, with disbelief, as if the laws of nature have betrayed him, as if mockery shouldn't have the power to unseat doctrine. You step onto the fountain's edge, the highest point. Everyone watches. You speak, not loudly, not dramatically, just clearly. I once knew a man who feared a joke more than a sword. Silence. He lost to both. The crowd erupts, not in cheers, in joy, in freedom, in sound. Aldrich tries to speak again. His mouth moves. No one listens. Then someone hands you a scroll, the original poem, the one about the devil being humorless, the one Morel died for. You read it. You read it aloud, word for word, line by line. The laughter quiets. People listen. It is not funny. It is sacred. When you finish, you lower the scroll, and you see it, Aldrich on his knees, trembling, defeated, not by swords, not by fire, but by a story. He is taken, not killed, just exiled, like so many he condemned. You watch him walk, cloak torn, alone. Then you turn back to the crowd and say nothing, because it's over, and because silence, now, is yours to choose. After revolutions, there is always the question, what now? The courtyard empties slowly. People return to fields, homes, routines, but nothing is quite the same. You remain atop the fountain, still, silent, as if waiting for the last ripple to fade. No one tells you to lead, no one dares, but they look to you. You begin again. You help clean the square. You sit with the wounded. You bury the burned scrolls alongside the dead and plant herbs on top, mint, sage, rosemary. The hollow moves into the old monastery. They scrub it raw, paint over the saints with animals. The silence becomes a hum of rebuilding. Children laugh freely. Old jokes return, dusted off like heirlooms, and new stories are born. You are asked to write the record, the story of how it happened. You decline. You say, let others write it. I'll know it by heart. So they do. Scribblers, minstrels, wandering tellers, each version a little different, each with the same pulse beneath. They start calling it the laughing rebellion. They start calling you the first fool. At first it stings, then you smile, because maybe it fits, because it started with a joke. And now the world is learning to laugh again. One morning a girl approaches, maybe 9. She hands you a slip of paper, a drawing. It's you, big nose, wild eyes, standing on a pig's back. You laugh, loud, and she laughs too, then runs. You pin the drawing to your wall. Next to it, you write a single phrase. They feared us because we smiled. The monastery becomes a school, not of war or silence or obedience, but of words, of mischief, of memory. You teach the children how to sharpen metaphors like blades, how to hide truths in riddles, how to challenge kings without raising a hand. You teach them how to laugh, and harder still, how to make others laugh. Your name becomes a verb. To wit means to cut with kindness, to reveal with rhythm, to unmask without violence. Travelers come, poets, ex-priests, midwives with secret songs. They bring stories and leave lighter. You listen to all of them. Not all are good. Some are terrible. But you laugh anyway, because laughter isn't always earned. Sometimes it's offered. Your hair grays, your voice cracks, your hands tremble more with each year, but your pen still sharp. You write less, but teach more. You become a mentor, a living legend. Children dare each other to touch your cloak. You let them. Every decade, someone tries to resurrect the purifiers, quietly, carefully, but they never last. Because satire travels faster than fear now. Because every time they rise, someone's already drawn them as ducks in robes. You keep one such drawing above your bed, just in case you forget how powerful a giggle can be. One night, you walk the old path, past the chapel, the fountain, the rebuilt gates. The air smells of smoke, but only from cooking fires. You stop, close your eyes, and you hear it, children laughing, and beneath it, wind through trees, like applause, or maybe one last joke told by the earth itself. Your knees ache now. The mornings come colder. The fire takes longer to light, but the laughter, still easy. You live in a small room beneath the bell tower. Not the highest room, not the warmest, but it has a window that catches the first light, and that is enough. You wake before the sun, you sit, you write, not for others now, for yourself. Fragments, reflections, bits of dialogue from dreams. One morning a child sneaks in. She's 6, wild curls, missing teeth. She brings you a joke. It's bad. You laugh anyway. Why? She asks. You say, because someday you'll need to remember what joy sounds like. She nods as if she understands. Later that day, a boy asks if the stories are true about Aldrich, about you, about the rebellion. You say yes. He asks if you were scared. You say always, but never silent. You still carry the scroll, the one with the poem, Morel's poem, your poem. You've patched it, rewritten it, a living document. It's more memory than paper now. Sometimes you recite it to the trees. You swear they lean in. At dusk, you join the others. The courtyard still buzzes. Old rebels playing chess with new rebels. Laughter bouncing off stone. You rarely speak in crowds now. But when you do, the fire leans your way. And the children hush. They call you old wit. You don't mind, because bones break, but words echo, and yours still ring. They tell your story now, not just in the hollow, not just in the villages, everywhere, by fire pits, on long walks, in corners of inns, and at the feet of old beds. It spreads like music, a tune everyone hums, but each in their own key. Some say you were a witch, some say you were 3 people, some say you never existed, just an idea that learned how to walk. You'd laugh if you could hear them, but you're gone now, or so they think. Because stories don't die the same way people do. They morph, they adapt, they forget and remember. The scribes write volumes, the bards exaggerate, the children dress up like you during festivals, holding scrolls and fake quills. One even made a pig costume. There are plays now, not about war, about jokes, about timing, about that one moment when someone dared to laugh. Your name, still not spoken with certainty, but your titles, wit, fool, fire mouth, ink blade, laughter's herald, you are all of them, and none. One candlelit night, a new poem is read aloud, not yours, but of you. It ends with this. She lit no fires, she told no lies, she only made us remember how to speak. In the silence after, someone weeps, not from sadness, from memory. You are not present, but you are there. In the breath between verses, in the moment before the laugh, in the echo of a well-timed pause, because you were never just one voice. You were the permission to speak. Years pass like whispers. The children you taught grow old. Their children teach their children. The scroll, the one that was patched and read and rewritten, rests in a sealed jar beneath the old bell tower. No plaque, no altar, just soil and roots. And yet, people come, not to mourn, to sit, to listen, as if something hums beneath the ground there. Some say it's the roots singing. Others say it's the paper itself, still whispering jokes. A tradition begins. Each year, on the day you first stood against Aldrich, a gathering forms, not to celebrate battle, but to share one new joke, one joke per person. That's the rule. Some jokes are terrible, some are profound, some are just sounds and faces and silence, but they are shared because that's what you left them. Not rules, not relics, but a rhythm, a reason to speak, a reason to listen. The world is still not kind. There are still tyrants, still darkness. But there is also this laughter that survives, words that outlive fire. And in the quiet after the joke, a moment of stillness where someone somewhere remembers you. Not your name, just the feeling of breathing deeply, of being allowed, of hearing laughter and knowing it is not forbidden, it is sacred. They say the wind knows your name, not the name given to you at birth, the name made from laughter, from legend, from the hush that follows a punchline. Children chase the wind now. They hold out their arms and spin, hoping to catch a whisper, a joke, a riddle. Sometimes they do, because jokes are like seeds, and seeds travel. A merchant from the north tells of a village that learned to rebel using shadow puppets. A widow in the east keeps a book of riddles under her pillow, the last gift from her daughter. A choir in the west sings songs with double meanings. One line for the king, one for the crowd. You never met these people, but your rhythm reached them. Your name, when spoken, still carries danger, but your influence, impossible to catch, too scattered, too alive. There is a map now, not of roads, of stories, carried in pieces, in rhymes, in scraps sewn into cloaks, each point a spark, each spark a voice. And those voices speak, not of victory, but of permission, of the right to grin, to raise an eyebrow, to wink at power. You became a culture, an atmosphere, a pressure in the air that says, speak carefully, but speak. Somewhere, someone writes a new joke tonight, and someone else laughs in a place where laughter used to be punishable. That's the thing with ideas. Once they're airborne, you can't burn them. They find the scroll, not by accident, by question. A curious girl, fingers stained with ink, digging for a story her grandmother once told. She finds the jar, wipes the dust, opens it with care. Inside, your poem, faded, frayed, still legible. She reads it. She doesn't cry. She doesn't laugh. She breathes deeply. Then she runs, not away, toward the bell tower, toward the courtyard, toward the others. She holds it high. They gather around. She doesn't speak. She simply begins. She laughed at the devil's silence, and the devil broke. And the others respond. With every joke since, we rebuild the world. It becomes ritual. Once a season, they gather. One child, the youngest who can read, recites the poem aloud, not because it's sacred, because it's still true. The scroll is recopied, translated, etched into walls, taught in whispers. The girl who found it grows older, wiser, quieter, but her wit sharp. They start calling her fool. At first, she resists. Then she remembers the stories. Then she writes her own, not to replace you, to continue you, because you weren't the first, and she won't be the last, because every age has its silence. And every silence waits for someone brave enough to break it with a laugh. It begins again, not with swords, with satire. A new regime rises, shiny on the outside, rotten beneath. They wear robes instead of armor, speak in decrees instead of growls. But they fear the same things: ink, laughter, disobedience in disguise. The new fool watches, listens, writes. She pens a pamphlet, nothing too sharp, just enough to sting. It circulates by bread wrappers, inside song lyrics, in the margins of official documents. One day, a minister finds a note hidden in a tax scroll. Fear the joke you don't understand. It's already winning. He rages, orders arrests, searches, but words don't bleed. They scatter and they multiply. The fool builds a network, storytellers, scribes, street performers. They speak in layers, say one thing, mean another. Every act a question, every smile a dare, and the people, they remember. They remember you, even if they don't know your name, because the rhythm is the same, the cadence of rebellion. The fool does not lead armies. She doesn't need to. She teaches others to speak. And in every whispered line, in every hushed rhyme beneath a tyrant's nose, there is fire, a war without blood, a war of paper, a war that cannot be burned away. Years into her work, the fool is asked a question by a frightened boy. Why do you risk it? She smiles, not because she's brave, because she remembers the answer, because silence is a slow death. He doesn't understand yet, but he will. She tells him a story, one of yours, about the time you laughed at a falling priest and paid with suspicion, about Mirel, about Aldrich, about the joke that unseated a tyrant, and about the silence that came after, chosen, not imposed. Laughing doesn't fix everything, she tells him, but it lets us survive long enough to try. He nods slowly, then asks her to teach him a joke. She does. It's awful. They laugh anyway, because even bad jokes shared are proof that we're still here. The fool writes her version of your scroll. She adds new verses, keeps the bones. It's longer now, sharper in places, gentler in others. It ends with this line. She laughed, not because it was safe, but because it was necessary. And beneath that, in smaller letters, so do I. The fool grows older. Her hands ache. Her voice cracks. She walks slower now, but her words still strike. New voices rise, not to replace her, to walk beside her. A boy with stories disguised as riddles, a girl who dances satire, a scribe who writes entire dialogues on walls with chalk. The village has changed. It isn't silent. It isn't perfect, but it breathes. One night a new child is born. The fool holds her. The baby wraps a hand around her thumb. She laughs. The baby blinks. You'll cause trouble, the fool whispers. Good. Later, by the fire, the fool opens the old scroll again, reads it one more time. The edges are worn, the ink faded, but the message untouched. She doesn't add to it, doesn't need to. She just reads and remembers and smiles. Because the circle didn't break, it expanded. And somewhere, out there, someone is telling the story again. Maybe with mistakes, maybe with flair, but telling it, keeping it alive. And that's all it ever needed. Long after the fool is gone, the scroll remains. not in a jar, not in a tower, in words spoken, sung, whispered in games, carved into the underside of tables, sewn into the hems of festival cloaks, and not just the poem, the idea that laughter is resistance, that silence, when chosen, is power, and when imposed, is a battle worth fighting. The world tries to forget sometimes. A new ruler bans satire. A city burns its libraries. A preacher thunders against humor. But always, someone remembers the joke, not the words, the rhythm. And in a village far from power, a child rewrites it in their own way. A single line. Truth doesn't fear laughter, lies do, and the seed is planted again. It may take years, but it will grow. It always does. Centuries pass. The world changes, faster, louder, stranger, but the hunger remains for stories, for subversion, for the safety of a shared laugh. In a city thick with noise and glass, someone finds a stage, a real one, boards and lights and curtains, and they remember the stories, the fool, the scroll, the laughing rebellion. So they write a play. It's not accurate. It doesn't try to be. There's a talking goat, a villain in roller skates, a child who keeps asking, but what if laughter is magic? The audience laughs, and some cry, because it isn't about facts, it's about feeling. After the play, someone stays behind, leaves a folded paper on the empty stage, a note. It says, "My mother taught me to laugh when I wanted to scream. I never knew why until tonight." There is no signature of a scroll wrapped in fire and a smile rising from the flame. In a museum built over ruins, there is a tapestry, old, faded, threadbare. It shows a woman with wild eyes, holding a scroll in one hand and a feather in the other. Around her, figures laugh. A pig runs in circles. Flames curl, but do not consume. The plaque reads, "Unknown artist. Title, wit. Period, uncertain." Children pass by, uninterested, see what's up, but one boy lingers. He stares, not because he understands, but because he feels something tugging, a thread. That night, he dreams of words wrapped in fire, of voices under stone, of jokes that crack walls. He wakes up laughing. The next day he draws, not the tapestry, something new, a woman made of letters, a crowd made of exclamation points, a scroll like a comet. He gives it no title, just a line. "We were never meant to stay quiet." The museum never sees the drawing, but a teacher does and pins it to a wall, and someone else copies it, and the thread pulls forward again. Wit lives not as history, but as instinct. They don't always know they carry it. A child reciting a joke without knowing its origin. A teacher quoting an old line as if it were new. A street artist who draws laughter with a knife's edge. They are the carriers, not of disease, of defiance. In hospitals, someone leaves riddles on whiteboards. In prisons, poems appear in margins of Bibles. In parliaments, satire sneaks into footnotes. They call it mischief. They don't see the roots, but it spreads, not wildly, patiently. A virus with no cure, an inheritance with no will. Somewhere, an old woman finishes a line with perfect timing. Somewhere else, a teenager scribbles a one-liner into a test answer. And somewhere deep beneath all that, your rhythm, not quoted, echoed, so the scroll is gone, but the pulse still there. In every pause, every grin, every time someone dares to ask, but what if the joke is the truth? It's not loud, not anymore, but it's there, a hum beneath things. The way people pause before speaking, the way they smile sideways, the way they teach their children to listen for double meanings, the way no tyrant ever fully sleeps, because they know. Laughter never really dies. It waits, like coals beneath ash, like wind under doors. Your name is no longer known, but your defiance is muscle memory. They say the scroll was myth. They say the fool was never real. They say stories can't change the world. And then someone laughs, not cruelly, not loudly, just knowingly. And the moment shifts. That's what you left behind. Not revolution, but resonance. Not noise, but vibration. Enough to rattle walls. Enough to open mouths. Enough to remind we were not made for silence. There are quiet ages, times when even whispers feel too loud, when satire folds its wings and hides as an echo. They call it peace, but it's a shallow sleep, and still the rhythm endures, hidden. A lullaby hummed by a mother who doesn't know where she learned it. A provocateur writes on a table napkin, "Don't forget to think." A pun in the margin catches the eye of someone reading. The song sleeps, but the ember remains. Smoke still dances beneath the ash. The joke's power withdraws. History nearly forgets. But there are seeds in the fingers, because one day someone will laugh in the wrong place, and everything will shift again. That's the cycle. Dormancy, not death. Somewhere in the basement of a broken school, a child finds a phrase etched in stone. Wit was here. She doesn't know who Wit is. She asks her teacher. The teacher shakes her head, says it's just graffiti. But that night, the teacher dreams of a scroll, of a woman made of metaphors, of flames that sing. She wakes with a line in her mouth. We laughed, therefore we were. She doesn't remember why it feels sacred, but she writes it on the blackboard just once and leaves it there. Other whispers rise in chalk, in ink, in ash, in breath. Truth tickles. Laughter is a loophole. She laughed first. No signatures, just echoes, a pulse in the walls. Wit isn't gone, just redistributed. The janitor hums a tune that no one taught him, a rhythm passed down from broom to broom. A security guard leaves notes in lockers. Smile like you mean it. An old woman sells pastries wrapped in napkins that say, even this is rebellion. No one organizes this. It organizes itself. Each whisper finds its place. Each line makes space for another. And still, no one claims the title. No one dares say, I am the fool. Because the fool has become too many people, too many gestures, too many questions. In one town, children invent a new punctuation mark. It means, I'm joking, but also not. They start ending their texts with it. Even elders follow. Soon, it's everywhere. On walls, on menus, on public signage. It confuses the officials. It delights the citizens. The whispers become a language. And in that language, there is memory. And in that memory, there is you. It starts with a sound, not a speech, not a riot, a snort, then a cough, then a laugh too loud to hide. In a sterile meeting room, someone couldn't help it. A line slipped, a phrase folded in on itself, and something true and absurd cracked the quiet. That sound travels, not through microphones, through glances, through posture, through sudden silence that isn't fear, but listening. Someone repeats the joke. It circles the building, then the street, then the net. Not the words, the feeling, the vibration. People who haven't laughed in years feel their ribs ache. Something old returns, not joy, but recognition. A satire channel releases a sketch, subtle, surgical. It ends with a line. She was right. If you can't laugh, check who's holding your throat. No one credits her. They don't have to. The fool is not a person. She's a frequency. And suddenly, the air is full of her. Jokes in headlines, graffiti shaped like paradoxes, street signs modified to say, turn left unless you're morally compromised. The city adjusts. Some resist, some panic, but most, they breathe deeper, as if remembering how, because it wasn't a revolution that started this. It was a signal, and now everyone is tuning in. The hardest part is seeing it. Not the scroll, not the history, yourself. Because every time the cycle returns, when fear tightens throats and silence is repackaged as virtue, there's someone staring at a reflection and asking, am I the next fool? No one answers. Because the question isn't meant to be answered. It's meant to itch, to linger, to bloom. Mirrors start appearing, real ones, nailed to trees, hung in subway stations, taped inside bathroom stalls, each with a line. She waited until the room was quiet, then told the truth sideways. Some people laugh, some cry, some walk away faster, but no one forgets. The mirrors spread, not just physically, mentally, culturally. Every joke becomes a reflection, every satire a light turned inward, every smirk a dare. The next fool isn't chosen. They volunteer, quietly, boldly, accidentally, by seeing the joke and still telling it. Even when the room forgets how to breathe, especially then, it doesn't explode. It doesn't announce itself with banners or bells. It flickers. A street performer who recites a monologue that's both comedy and confession. A bakery that stamps laugh responsibly on every loaf. A child who, when told to stay quiet, replies, but the silence is full already. It builds like kindling. Until one night, someone reads the scroll aloud again. Not the original, a version, a translation, a mutation. But the rhythm is unmistakable. She spoke sideways. She burned nothing but certainty. She gave us back the grin. They read it by candlelight. Others listen. Then someone else picks it up. Then another. By dawn, it's on every corner. In cafes, in sermons, in subways, not declared, not debated, just present, because the flame doesn't return by force. It returns by resonance. You were never meant to rule, only to remind. And now they remember. The jokes are sharper, the smiles more defiant. The world's just a little warmer. There's no inheritance ceremony, no parchment, no ribboned box, just moments. A young comic tries their first set and bombs terribly. Someone still claps. A teacher rewrites a textbook footnote as a joke, and no one notices, except one kid who smiles for the first time in weeks. An old woman quotes a line from a play no one remembers. Laughter is breath disguised as rebellion. No one writes that down, but 3 people whisper it later. That's how it spreads now, not in fires, in fragments, bits of rhythm passed like salt across generations. One boy writes a punchline he doesn't understand, but feels is right. One girl draws a spiral with a smile at the center and doesn't know why. They don't need to know, because what you left wasn't a rule book. It was permission, and now it moves on its own. A thing too soft to be banned, too clever to be erased, too human to be ignored. They don't wear robes. They don't chant or preach, but they build. Satirists, poets, illustrators, dancers, anyone who turns discomfort into rhythm, anyone who translates tension into laughter. They are the new architects, and the structures they raise don't look like towers or walls. They look like questions, like punchlines, like doors you didn't know you could open. And one writes a book where the villain is silence itself. Another crafts a dance that mimics bureaucracy until it collapses into giggles. A student makes a chatbot that only answers in riddles and irony. None of them claim to be the fool, but the fool's hands are all over their work. Each joke is a brick, each rhyme a window, each audience breath a foundation. They don't seek to lead, they seek to loosen, because loosening is its own kind of revolution. Not everything needs to break. Some things just need to laugh themselves free. It starts again, like it always does. A whisper in a corridor, a scribble on a wall, a grin in the wrong moment. They say the fool's coming back. Of course, no one knows who says it first. That's how rumors work. That's how myths survive. But it spreads, a joke that makes the rounds, a phrase no one can trace, a laughter that feels too intentional. In a city council meeting, someone giggles during the vote. In a courthouse, Someone adds a line to the stenographer's transcript. Laughter, uncontested, unanimous. In alleyways, people gather not to shout, but to smirk. A new mural appears. A figure, back turned, cloak rippling. In one hand, a scroll. In the other, a feather dipped in ink. No eyes, no face, just the shape of a story preparing to speak. People stop, people stare. They don't ask who painted it, they ask what it means. And the rumor answers, she never left, she just changed rooms. It doesn't march, it murmurs, in the form of comedy nights that never get advertised, in zines left in public bathrooms, in riddles passed through handshakes. The resistance is laughter again, not loud, but undeniable. A government report misplaces an entire page, replaced with limericks. A train station loudspeaker glitches and loops a joke about gravity and bureaucracy. No one claims it, but everyone hears. At a protest, someone holds a sign. Down with oppression. Unless it's funny, then we negotiate. People laugh, then think, then march, because the message is never just the joke. It's the timing. It's the courage. It's the refusal to accept silence as safe. The mural gets painted over. By morning, 3 more appear. The scroll returns in fragments, projected onto buildings, spray painted in alleys, tattooed onto the inner wrist of a teen who's never read the full text, but understands every word. The resistance doesn't want power, it wants breath, and it's breathing deeper now. They call it a movement, but it moves like a smile, quiet, fast, contagious. Children draw scrolls in the margins of math exams. Street preachers quote satire like scripture. The fool isn't back. She was never gone. She just shifted form. Now she's a playlist, a protest song, a viral meme, a whisper that sounds like permission. One line shows up on 1,000 lips. If the silence is holy, why does it flinch at jokes? No one remembers where it came from, but everyone feels it. A pop-up museum opens, unmarked, filled with empty frames and one sign. Laughter is the missing image. Visitors leave notes, doodles, puns. They're collected and scattered, turned into street art, shared in underground networks. A man in a suit reads one aloud before a board meeting. She didn't shout, she chuckled. The room doesn't laugh, But they don't forget, because something's awake now. Not rage, not revolt, recognition, and the smile that comes with it. The air smells different now. Not smoke, not sulfur, something lighter. The scent of things nearly remembered. Whispers still ripple, not in secret, but in ritual. In the way people greet each other with smirks. In the way jokes begin with, "This might be dangerous," and end with applause. Someone writes a new version of the scroll. It's printed on recycled receipts, folded into fortune cookies, left in tip jars. It reads, "She laughed in the gaps. That was enough to keep us breathing." The fool isn't mentioned, but she's everywhere. In satire shows that pretend to be the news, in graffiti that argues with billboards, in lullabies with punchlines tucked inside. The embers never went out, they just sank deeper. And now they glow, warm, patient, ready. It's faint, a repetition, not of words, of rhythm. The cadence of defiance softened by time, but still there. In cities rebuilt from glass and memory, people gather in silence, only to burst into laughter at a single shared phrase. She asked if silence could be funny. No one answers, but everyone nods. Echoes don't demand belief. They suggest it, and the suggestion spreads. A song climbs the charts. Its chorus, a riddle, a child's science fair project is just a mirror and the word why scrawled behind it. An old man at a funeral whispers, "She wouldn't have wanted a prayer, she'd want a pun." The room exhales, not because the grief ends, but because it breathes again. The echo loops. Old phrases return with new mouths. Speak sideways. Tell it slant. Laugh when they frown. And beneath it all, a pulse. Yours? Maybe. Or maybe just what you left behind. Something stirs, not in politics, not in power, in posture. People stand differently now, heads tilted, brows raised, waiting as if the world might wink at them. And sometimes it does. An advertisement quotes an ancient satire, and no one complains. A judge cites a parable that ends in laughter. A child's first word is why, and the parents don't correct her. They're not on the edge of revolution. They're on the threshold of remembering. That control cracks when questioned. That absurdity held to the light, reveals shape. That laughter shared is proof of breathing. Someone paints a door on a wall, just outlines, just enough to suggest passage. Someone else knocks, another draws a handle. They don't know where it leads. But the threshold glows anyway. And still, no leaders, just questions, just rhythm, just the near sound of someone, somewhere preparing to tell the truth. Sideways. The world doesn't end in fire. It ends for a moment in a grin. A classroom forgets the test and debates a joke. A government meeting dissolves in a pun no one will claim. A child interrupts a funeral with a laugh so sincere that even the coffin seems to shift. No one knows when the scroll became skywriting, but one morning there it is, above the city, drawn in vapor. She whispered, "We heard." No one admits to doing it, but everyone looks up. Some cover their mouths, others open them, to sigh, to sing, to repeat the oldest truth. We laughed, therefore we lived. And one last time, before the credits roll, someone smiles. It's not defiant, it's not triumphant, it's just full of everything that came before and everything that's still coming. And then nothing heroic, no monument, no holiday, just a whisper kept warm. Someone writes a joke on the inside of a jacket. Another folds a scroll into the lining of their backpack. A final play is staged in a theater with no lights, where the punchline is silence, and everyone still laughs. No one says your name, because names are too small now. But your breath, it's in the timing, in the hush before the laughter, in the pause that makes the meaning land. And so you disappear, not in flame, not in fear, but like all things that mattered, you ripple, you echo, you smile back at the dark, and then you are gone, just like all who came before, and just like all who will come after, and the world goes on, still absurd, still brutal, still somehow worth laughing through.